It is not good in Athens. European leaders may look for pragmatic compromise, to steal a phrase from Mohammed Al-Arian. In Athens, it's about food, it's about rent, it's also about medicine. Hans Nichols is in Brussels this morning on diplomacy. Joe Weisenthal is in Athens looking at the real economy. Joe, what have you simply learned walking the streets of Athens?
Well, once again, we're seeing, the return of ATM lines. Though it's funny, I had a discussion this morning with a Greek entrepreneur, and one of the things he told me is that it was almost disturbing the speed at which people had already adjusted to the limited banking, and he was disturbed at how quickly people thought that was the new normal. So you have to figure this is a country that has been in economic crisis for several years now, very used to becoming inured in a way to hardship. And so despite the fact that we have this extraordinary situation with the banking system, life in the center of Athens almost appears normal.
Joe, do the people of Greece support Mr. Tsipras this morning as he travels to Brussels?
I think, like any place, the position is split, but I think still overwhelmingly the goal and the hope is that Tsipras can get a deal. Even among the no voters, there's a lot of hope. There's not much interest in leaving the Eurozone. You'll hear a lot of people cite that IMF report about the need for debt relief. And so the view is that Tsipras is fighting on the right side. Obviously, almost all of the yes voters also would hope that Tsipras gets a deal that will ensure Greece's position in the Eurozone.
Joe Weisenthal, Bloomberg Markets in Athens this morning. And then, Brendan, you have to go to Brussels where the real drama is today.
Of course, drama back to Brussels. Another late-night Euro negotiation deal. It's going to be fun. Hans Nichols is there 24 hours a day waiting for this to happen. Has there been any movement on the German side, or is this the same red line that we've been seeing for the last 6 months?
No movement on the German side. That's very clear. And I have to say that the body language, at least from Mr. Juncker, who, of course, the EU Commission president, has been very negative. You can cast about there looking for a little bit of optimism. I suppose you could say what the French prime minister said today, saying that debt relief shouldn't be taboo, should be part of the conversation. But in general, especially with that harsh tone set by Juncker, and he said that basically was saying it was unacceptable to be called terrorist, which is what Yanis Varoufakis, he said it was terrorism what creditors were doing. So very little prospects right now.
Hans, yesterday pinging around the internet, both in Europe and in the U.S., was an interview that Thomas Piketty, the economist, did with Die Zeit, where he basically pointed out that Germany got its own debt relief in 1953. Did that change anything in your Berlin?
Historically accurate, practically not very helpful. If you want to try to convince the German public to do some sort of debt write-down, debt reprofiling, reminding them about 1871, reminding them about World War II is not going to be positive. So it was met with a shrug. In some ways, though, a lot of what Merkel's saying has been fairly consistent. She's willing to offer help. Angela Merkel is willing to extend a hand. There just have to be practical reforms and actual tangible evidence that Greece is going to implement those reforms before there will be any release of funds. There will be no unconditional money. Guys?
Hans, any word out of the ECB yesterday? The ECB increasing the haircut on Greece, basically making it more difficult in terms of collateral rules. Are we hearing anything? They seem to be tightening the screws.
So what they did is they tightened the collateral ever so slightly, and they didn't raise the ceiling. This continues to put pressure on the banks and didn't give the banks any sort of lifeline. Now it looks like the banks won't open, if at all, this week until later this week. Tsipras' pledge that the banks would be open today has already been disproved. Guys?
Hans Nichols, thank you so much. In Brussels this morning, and, of course, those meetings starting here in a bit. Joe Weisenthal as well, thank you in Athens. He'll continue his coverage.